Ja, einen schönen guten Nachmittag. Herzlich willkommen im Kino des DFF. Herzlichen Dank im Namen des Filmkollektiv Frankfurt an Natascha Gikas, Andreas Beilharz, Björn Schmidt, dass wir mit dieser Reihe Transnationales Armenisches Kino wieder bei euch sein können. So, vielen, vielen Dank. Und ja, ich wechsle jetzt ins Englische. I will now continue in English. And yeah, thank you very much for being here to the screenings, to the screening today, which I'm particularly excited about in the context of this whole festival, because we have a filmmaker whom I always had wanted to meet in person, and had seen films over the years here and there, and half a year ago when there was a program, when I made a program in Berlin on Armenian cinema, I also screened 2 of your films, and now it's a great pleasure that we can have her in person. So I would like you to welcome the filmmaker Gariné Torossian.
Thank you so much. Such a great thing that the films kind of give me the opportunity to meet great people. So I'm grateful for having made them, and Gary liking my films and showing them in Berlin and here. So thank you for this opportunity. What a beautiful space. And I'm so excited to show the films on 16 millimeter. Some of them are originally shot on 16, and that's a rare opportunity. So I hope you enjoy it, and it speaks to you.
Thank you very much. And then just a short note in terms of the plan for this screening now. So we will screen 4 short films of Gariné's, 4 short films chronologically. So we'll start first with the film's Visions from 1992 on 60mm, then Girl from Mouche, also 60mm from 1994, then Sparkle Horse, also 60mm from 1999, and then one of your latest films, an inventory of barely visible things, which you made already in Armenia, because the first films you made in Canada, and then this one was already...
Yeah. Which was more of the last film, it was more of I wouldn't call it a complete thing. It was more for an exhibition, but it was kind of important that it was something that I made in Armenia, and since I've been living there, so it was commissioned for an exhibition, rather than the other ones were not commissions. They were just things that I really had to make. So, yeah.
and then our plan is that we, after these 4 short films, make a small break, talk briefly about the 4 films, and then after that will be the main feature of this program, namely the film Stone Time Touch from 2007, experimental feature film, and yeah, and after this screening, the screening of Stone Time Touch, we will then have more time to talk about this film in general. No. So yeah, we'll start, and thank you very much for being here, and thanks to the projectionist Günther Volkmann and Christian Appelt for now handling this 3 rare 60mm prints, 2 of them from Lightcone Archive and 1 from the archive of Auseinandersetzungen, and yeah, now good projection. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for having made these films, and so the first one is from 1992, and the latest we have just seen from 2018. So it's been quite some time between them, but I find that they're seeing them together. And of course, you made much more films. We just showed these 4, but in the 90s and 2000s you made, of course, much more films. So this was just a small selection, also based on what was available on print in Europe. But could you share with us how you started making your first films and how it was?
Yeah, Visions, for example, I was at university at the time, and my professor, Michael Simak, he was teaching, my photography professor. I was interested in photography, and so I would really experiment in the darkroom, and he liked what I was doing creatively, and he was very encouraging. And for the first time, I felt like there's somebody who really understands me and really is supporting me, So I kind of I was grateful for that. and I wanted to thank him in a way, and I kind of made a homage film for him, Visions, and I wasn't in love with his photography or anything like that, but I just love that he opened a door for me. He did say I needed to work on the technical because I didn't really focus on technical things like lighting, the f-stops and so on, which I had no patience for. I just wanted to go in the dark room and let things happen, let the magic of accidents, so I was more interested in that. And but he also appreciated that a lot. And also at York University, it was my first year, and there was dance students there, and I would watch them perform. And this one particular dancer who I wanted to film on 16 millimeter and Super 8, that is. And so I worked with her as well and combined the two together. And I was supposed to make a Super 8 film, but I was really eager to do a 60 millimeter. So the second year students had all their leftover films, or leader in the bins in the editing suites. So I would just go get those and paste my Super 8 into the 16 and, scratched on the 16. I hadn't really seen experimental film at that point. So it really just came on its own, that kind of process of making film. Basically wanting to make a 16 millimeter film, but I couldn't get a 60 millimeter camera. So I put the Super 8 into the 16. And I liked the emotional impact that it had and the way I could work with sound. I don't know, it spoke to me that, because I felt like the collage gave me a way of expressing myself, which I couldn't with a perfect image.
Then the next film was...
the next film was Girl from Mouch, and I also made that at York University, partly. And I had just seen Color of Pomegranates by Sergei Parajanov, and I felt like, obviously I was in love with being Armenian or Armenia and the music, the folk music and so on. So I felt Color of Pomegranates, this, artist, filmmaker, really captured what I was imagining. And in a way, the film is a homage to him, and I got pictures that a photographer in Toronto had photographed of Parajanov, and at the time, Atome Goyan also had gone to Armenia to shoot his calendar, and he gave me a book of Armenian churches, and that's how I kind of shot that and shot photographs and then did the collage. Yeah.
And so maybe since we have touched upon the topic of being Armenian, maybe at this point already a few biographical things. You were born in 1970 in Beirut.
Yep, in Beirut.
And then when the Lebanese civil war began, your family moved to Canada?
Yes.
Do you have memories of this first years of your life in Beirut?
Yeah, very strong memories actually. Predominantly because my grandmother lived in Burj Hammoud, which is a very interesting part of Beirut, and it was mostly Armenians living there, and there's a really it's kind of maze-like, the place. It's like everything is interconnected. There's all these wires hanging, electrical wires everywhere, and there's all these little passageways and so on. So there's something very intimate about the place, and of course all the shops, the Armenian shoemakers and so on, and all these amazing shops. It was kind of like a set, a movie set or something. So it was magical going there, and and then of course being Armenian there was very important because Armenians after the genocide, of course, went through Syria and then to Lebanon. So that was a big part of their identity, and Yeah, the image of Ararat, for example, that painting that they all had in their homes, a painting of Mount Ararat. So, yeah, I mean, it came from there, that we are Armenian and that's our identity. And it was very important to the Armenians in Lebanon, that identity. So, that stayed with me, obviously, and then I went to Armenian school in Lebanon until grade 1, and then moved to Canada. And of course, Canada being a kind of place where you're open to just, look for your identity, and because Canada at the time really didn't have a very strong identity. Maybe it does more now, but it still is it's a kind of place where all cultures are very welcome, and you can be who you want. And as an artist, it was a place where you can make work and get funding for work. And anyways, that was my need. I needed to make films about that initially, and it wasn't only that. I mean, my work is very much about being a woman as well, and so yeah, that's. Did I answer the question? Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And the last of these 4 films we've seen, as mentioned, was made in the Republic of Armenia, where you moved, as we figured out, almost 10 years ago.
Yep.
And it's also, compared to the earlier films, film shot on digital format. Can you tell a bit more about how this? I mean, I think I must say that often I find, when filmmakers who started in working with film and then changed to digital, I find it often, so to say, kind of spirit is lost, I must say. But in your case, and we're going to see the film Stone Time Touch now, which is also shot digitally, but I think this is really a rare example of a so it's a kind of a personal compliment. It's a rare example of somebody working with digital media but still doing something very remarkable, but and kind of recognizable, but still so faithful to one's own voice. Can you tell a bit more about this last short film, an inventory of strictly visible things?
Yes, like you mentioned, Stone Time Touch, which you guys will see next, but that's such a different time, It was before I moved to Armenia, and so I've been living there for a long time. And this project, Inventory, is so much about this emptiness, kind of. So I was commissioned to do this, and then I thought, what am I going to make a film about? I had no idea, and I knew about like Georges Perec's a book where he just takes an inventory, everything that he sees, sitting at a cafe in Paris. And I felt like that seemed like the most logical thing. So it was a kind of like an inventory, because emotionally I felt nothing. So that was the only answer. That's the only thing I could do. So it's like this kind of emptiness, and in a way, inventory is the way to fill it up. I don't know. Is that? It was interesting watching it because I haven't seen it for a long time. So it was, there's some kind of pain in there. It's so hidden, whereas the other work, it's just so all the pain is out there. You can feel it. But that one is like, it's like the pain isn't visible somehow. Or it's muted completely. Yeah.
We'll talk more about this feeling after the screening of Stone Time Touch. But is there anything you would like to say to us, the audience, before watching Stone Time Touch?
I'm not sure, really. Yeah, we'll talk after, if you'd like. Thank you.
Yes, so welcome back, and now I'm glad that we have quite some time to talk about Stone Time Touch, maybe also again about the previous films, or in general about about also topics distinct from film. But let's start talking about Stone Time Touch. Could you maybe tell again how this project came about to do this film, and also particularly with the collaboration of Arsene?
Well, originally it was supposed to be something completely different. It was somebody I knew in Armenia told me their story, how they were adopted by someone and in exchange for a radio. So that really fascinated me, and I wanted to make that film. But as soon as I got to Armenia, I got funding for that, actually. I got to Armenia, she said, "Oh, I don't want my story told." So I had to come up with something else. So I started shooting. I was actually there for the film festival, the Golden Apricot at the time, and I met another filmmaker who was visiting from Belgium to show his film, and then I was staying at somebody's hotel, and his daughter Kami, who's in the film, she was there, and she was interested in making films, so she wanted to be part of it. So we just went and met people and just shot many, many hours, and everybody who came in the film, the encounters we had were all by chance. There was no plan, except my friend Ruben Khachadurian, who was also part of the film festival at the time. He was kind of, driving us around, taking us around Armenia, so he was a big part of the journey. And then when I shot all this footage, like about 20 hours, I guess, of all these experiences, I went to Toronto, and Arsine Khanjian had just returned from her trip, and it seemed like we were having parallel experiences, and she invited me over to show me all the photographs she had taken on her trip. And it was just one afternoon I was with her where I shot her speaking as she showed me the photographs. And then I wove those two things together, my experience and hers. And she was basically, because she was so articulate in expressing her experience and her emotions, and it was very similar to my experience, so she became the narrator. And then I had Kami, who was kind of like the tourist going there for the first time, and Arsine, who had been many times. So it all came together in the editing, basically, yeah.
And how often had you been before that? So you were at the Golden Apricot Festival, and before, how often had you been?
Yeah, I had been maybe a couple of times before. Yeah. And she had been much more than me, Arsine.
But and the times when you had been to Armenia, had you also been taking these notes and this a prominent part of the film, this diary aspect? Have you been also doing
No, I hadn't actually. I was just, I had always gone to show my films at the festival, or I was invited once before that to show my films outside of the festival. So that was the only way. Like I never went to do a project before. So yeah, that was the first time in terms of project, making a film there. So it was really not clear which way it was going, but I was just so excited by everybody wanting to tell their story. So I came across so many people. Everybody was so outspoken and wanted to be, wanted to share what they were experiencing. And it was a long time ago, of course, 2003, so very different now.
And yeah, the editing process. So how did you work on assembling these images and textures?
So I started editing it, and then Arsine was very involved as well, actually. After I spent many hours on it with another editor, she came into the picture too, and I wanted feedback, so she gave me feedback, and her feedback was very constructive. So she was involved in that way. Yeah, I worked with two other editors, and then the music was very important part of it, because the music is also another voice, without it, I think it wouldn't be what it is. So what I did was I edited the picture first, and then I went to New York and met with the Zulal trio, and in their studio they looked at the video and, you know, sang to the video. Basically, we recorded to the cut version.
I will open the discussion also to you, but maybe two more questions. In terms of editing, as mentioned, what I find very striking about this film, Stone Time Touch, that it's in its editing, or in the way how the film, the texture of the film is. I think it resembles in a certain way, but in a very distinct way, also your analog work. So I've rarely seen a film made in the digital era with digital means, which has this living texture. And sometimes you have this the silhouettes of people being animated, and very different kind of. How did you elaborate this kind of, well, so effects or not effects, but let's say this structure of the film digital?
I think like I really wanted to work on film, of course, and that was the only way to really express the emotional impact of it was through the collages, the texture, mostly the texture, having a lot of texture, because just looking at video footage on its own without being touched felt a little, it didn't really express what I wanted to express. So I felt I needed to really manipulate it in order to bring across what I was feeling, I guess. And it was more of an extension to what I had done before, and that felt more natural than something, like a documentary style, kind of more clean image.
And please correct me if I'm mistaken, but was this, am I right in saying that this was your first long film?
It was my first long.
And so how was for you this transition from short experimental films to this long structure?
Good question. I don't really remember that well, but I felt like I really wanted to do that. I guess there was so much to say, and now, like watching it, I felt it's a bit long, but oh, good. I guess it's hard for me. It's harder for me to watch my own because it is personal, and I'm in there, so it's very uncomfortable. But but I'm glad you didn't think so. I think there was a lot that I wanted to put all of it in there. There was even more maybe that I wanted to put in, but so I think 72 minutes was the nice feature length. I don't remember clearly, but I did want to make a feature length, I think, film.
Yes, I would like to open now to you. If you have questions, I'll also come to you with the microphone, and please feel free to ask. Otherwise, one step back regarding the cinematography. Amongst others, I mean, there are three names credited, but one of them is Fred Kellerman, who when I had a pleasure of honor of screening the film of Stone Time Touch in Berlin half a year ago, he was present because he lives in Berlin, and we didn't have the means back then to invite you, but he living in Berlin, and well, he talked from his perspective about the work, but I would like now, of course, to hear how you approached him and the two other people credited.
We were friends for a long time before, so we met at Toronto Film Festival. We had mutual friends who wanted us to meet, so we met in Toronto in '95, I think it was. And I loved his work, and we had a lot of similar interests, and he was very interested in Armenia. So, I think it would be great, maybe possible in the future, to work with him where he's solely the cinematographer, because he is such a great cinematographer. And but in this case, there was so many. We were all shooting, so I was using what I was shooting and what Ruben was shooting, and so it was the three of us, Ruben Khachatourian, and Fred and myself, because it was such a fragmented piece, and everybody's footage was kind of part of it.
And so maybe
it wasn't like a, sorry, it wasn't like a, obviously, you know, it was one film to begin, and then it became another thing when I had the conversation with Arsene, and Fred wasn't there, of course, so I was with Arsene in Toronto briefly to shoot it, and then, so it had many layers to it, to the making of it, yeah.
Maybe just a note in case you might not know, so Fred Kellerman is foremostly known for being the cinematographer of Bela Tara. So he shot the last, well, four films of Bela Tara. He's a filmmaker in his own right, and of course, cinematography of Bela Tara is, so to say, feels intuitively, it feels like a complete opposite of the work he had been doing here. But then, of course, what we see now is the editing, of course. So how did you work with him? Because I also assume the films you had made before, it was always yourself who had been doing the filming. So how was it for you to work with somebody who then again as a cinematographer has an aesthetic which is seemingly different?
Well, the way it was done was like we would go, you know, it would change on the day, right? Ruben would say, let's go to this place. So we would go there, Echmiadzin, for example, the blessing of the grapes. And everybody has their camera, and Fred is shooting his, I'm shooting it, and Ruben is shooting it. So that's how it was. So we would go to these locations and shoot, and then we would have all this footage from different people. Yeah, so...
But did you give instructions to, let's say, Fred, what kind of perspective you should have, or anything of this kind?
Well, I trusted him obviously a lot, and but you know, with the Echmiadzin, it was a lot like the faces, the people's faces, focusing on those things, and then you know, yeah, it was kind of not a lot of instruction. We were kind of going along, all of us, and it's just a matter of trusting the person's taste, and yeah. And then, of course, it changes so much in the process of editing because there's so much texture added and collage or whatever in the process of putting it together at the end. So, yeah. Not a scripted film.
Yes.
Thanks. My name is Hovik. The movie was great, and even if I traveled to Armenia in the last 12 years, 11 times or something like that, and I remembered some of the images and all the situations. And I still was very moved by some of the scenes that it was really sometimes very emotional and sometimes very hard to see. I forgot my question. The title is Stone Time Touch. Yeah. How this title came up, and has it a connection to Karastan?
The what?
Karastan, how the Armenians are calling Hayastan Karastan.
Oh, no. I wasn't really sure what I was going to call it, actually. And originally it was going to be something else that I really loved the title of, from Osip Mandelstam's book, Noise of Time. I really love that. But then, and then I asked Arsine too what she likes, and she said Stone Time Touch, actually. And then I emailed a bunch of friends asking what they thought. Which title do you like more, Stone Time Touch or Noise of Time? And a lot of people liked Stone Time Touch. And so that's how it ended up being that. And sometimes I don't feel completely comfortable with it, I have to say, because I still love that title, Noise of Time, and I want to use it. I don't know when, but yeah. It just it just works with the message of the film, I think. And of course, Stone Time Touch does too, but Noise of Time, I don't know, is so poetic.
I like Noise of Time too.
Do you?
Yeah.
I wish I knew you then, yeah.
And a last question. You showed Armenia in 2003, and you are living in Armenia since 10 years?
Yeah.
It was about a trip, and it was a journey, and but it wasn't like an advertisement for the touristic Armenia. And if you could say some words to the people who didn't visit Armenia right now, why they should come to Armenia?
Yeah.
Because it is much more than this movie, and it's very vibrant, and
yeah, definitely.
Very interestingly also for tourists.
Definitely. I feel very differently about it now. I think I see it very differently. I think when it was the very first or second time, and I was taken to certain places, and the people who wanted to speak were these people, who really wanted their voice to be heard. So that's how I went to document their experiences. And
I didn't criticize that. I just wanted to say that there is a much more to see.
Yeah. You know why I'm being like defensive a little? Because after I showed it in Karlovy Vary Film Festival, the Armenian ambassador was there. And then they pulled me over, after the screening, and they were so upset at me at representing Armenia in that way. So, yeah, they made me feel very bad about the film that I made. So, no, you're not doing that. But, no, it's very different, now, first of all. And, yeah, I think, I guess it's when one goes, because, when you're coming from a place of, genocide, that being your connection to the country initially, that becomes the kind of thing you're looking for, the pain, So, of course, there's a lot of that everywhere. So, and more of that there because of all the, the earthquake wasn't that long before and so on, so...
If I may just add, maybe that you show also this very rich spiritual side, and I think there's this one scene which is so beautiful, where I think the connection between spiritual and nature is made, and then we see the rainbow and the drops on the lens of the camera, and I think that this, despite not being a touristic image, very much draws me towards this country in that sense. So I think that there's a very, of course, we're in the cinema, and I have to think of cinema history and of great poets of cinema who show more spiritual sides of life than our Western world that I specifically grew up in encountered, and to me it's a very fascinating experience. I want to thank you.
Yeah, for me, I was drawn to Armenia for that spiritual reasons too, but now I don't really experience it, being, I don't know why. Yeah, but initially, like whenever, because, when you visit the churches, of course, you do feel that. You do feel it because they do feel like mystical grounds, so you do feel that.
And do you, actually, no, I wanted to ask one thing, which also when I'd screened the film or seen the film in previous times, I was always wanting to ask you, the scene with the very old lady, the witness of the genocide, you're so close to her with the camera, and it's such an intimate moment, but somehow I always felt that it's still very respectful towards her, even though we are very close to her. So I was always particularly interested how this meeting came across and how it was for you to film this, whether it was you was a kind of resistance towards filming it, or whether it was how it was for you to have this particular moment.
Yeah, it was like really one of the more joyful moments, because there's something like the place they live and the way they live. It's very authentic, or something from a fairy tale, you know, like it was very beautiful. I mean, obviously there's so much difficulty in their life financially and so on, but the closeness of the family, the history of the place, and it's so hard. I don't know, it's very hard to explain, but she was so charismatic or so beautiful, and I don't know, very old yet very alert and very, you know, interesting, fascinating woman, you know, very honest, and I don't know, one of the great people that we met on our journey, and the location was so beautiful and idyllic. Their house was covered in grass, and I don't know, it felt like from another time. And if only they had, you know, it wasn't so difficult for them to, because her sons were living in Russia and she wasn't with her what do you call it? So the other woman, her sons were in Russia, so that was very difficult. They had to probably go to work there and make a living. The film is so much about, you know, everyone having to separate from their family or from their place of birth, or having to move from this place to another, and so on. So all the fragments of, but even though like they all want to be together, but it's not possible. So yeah, the film is about that, really. Sorry, even my answers are very fragmented here. I'm not really making any sense, but
but it's good if the answers correspond with the visual style of
exactly.
the film.
So I can say anything.
Also, one aspect which one recurrent structural aspect which we can also find in your earlier films we have seen today is this the way how you deal with sound. I know you talked a bit about the music. What I think is also quite striking is how you work with the voice, and namely in Girl from Mouch it was very prominent in actually all the other films, in here also, and sometimes you are saying, or a voice is saying things which are barely audible, and yet one has the feeling it is important to understand, but it's very in a good way, and also then feels it has a kind of spiritual side or kind of mystical side to it. Could you tell us more about this aspect of your work?
That's a good question too. Let's see. I think it's like there's, you know, even with the layering of images and not wanting to show anything clear is a big part of the process, you know, in these films. Not wanting to be, you know, have a defined idea of anything, have a definite, knowledge. Everything is can fall apart. Something can be said and be important at that moment, and then later on it becomes invisible. So it's a bit a play with that. It's but it's not really like conscious. It's subconscious in a way. It's being very private and very, at the same time, wanting to expose. So doing that with the image and also doing that with the sound. So I think, yeah, it's kind of like a dance with the soundtrack or the image. It's hard to explain, but I think I made it clear. Huh?
In Girl from Mouche, when you, but this is very audible when you pronounce the names of certain places, Echmiadzin, Yerevan.
That really disturbs me now, hearing that. It's like, it's a bit like a postcard, really out loud, those particular words. But I think it's just what it is. Like, the film is so much about wanting to express something that is very clear yet unclear. So at moments in the film, things are said that are so clear, and then there is, of course, when I watch it, I feel very shy about that. So I'm still very much part of the film in that way. So if I could continue the film, I would do something else after that, which might hide that. So it's all about revealing, unrevealing, unveiling, unveiling the. Do you know what I mean? It's like clouds moving. The sun becomes clear, and then the cloud makes it disappear. It's a bit like that. It's like like the kind of emotions and nervous system. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to explain exactly, but. I think that's the way I was able to express myself, and I don't know those words with the clarity. I guess those were the places that I knew about. That's why I emphasized on those words at the end of the film.
And Girl from Mouche refers to your ancestors being from Mouche?
Oh yeah, Girl from Mouche, actually, it's from a song. So it's a title of a song which I heard and I thought expressed. The song also is about Moucho Archik, Girl from Mouche, you're looking at beautiful pictures or something. Those are the lyrics. So the film is about that, looking at pictures and imagining a place.
And where did your family come from originally?
Einteb, which is not Mouche, so yeah.
So
I don't.
Both sides of your.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, so your parents living in, or when you were born, you were, as I mentioned, born in Beirut. They were the first generation after the second generation.
Second generation, yeah.
And so they had also been born in Lebanon. Your parents.
My mom was, and my dad in Syria. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and this would also, if you allow, interest me to hear more about this the diasporic aspect for you. So, you said before you were first year spent in Lebanon, then Canada, and with your parents, and we talked about this before the screening. When you came to Canada, you continued to speak Armenian with your parents, or English?
I still speak Armenian with them, so with my dad now. But we speak Armenian. But I feel like that's probably the end. I mean, after that, who am I going to speak Armenian with? Armenians in Armenia. But at home, with our kids, we speak mostly English. So because English is like I've been educated in English and so on. So the Armenian was at a very, not at a high level. So I express myself better in English. Yeah.
I mean, we've been in this. I hope we still have a bit of time. Wanted to ask one more question, but no, just to say that in this program we've been also putting an accent on the language of the diaspora of the Western Armenian. So 1 week ago we had Grigor Beledian here, who is probably the most prominent literary figure of Western Armenian. But it's really a question, and obviously it's a kind of endangered or dying language, because we had Silvina Dermegerdichan last week here. Her son, for instance, doesn't speak Western Armenian, even though she does. So it's like an open question. This maybe not a question in that sense to you, but it's of course we are kind of witnessing endangering and fading of a language. But when you recall, does this particularly Western Armenian, so to say, evoke any kind of memories for you in terms of child?
Definitely, yeah. I guess it's a culture on its own, you know, the Western Armenian culture. It's different than the Eastern. My sons speak Eastern Armenian because they've grown up in Armenia, so they speak it very well. And then we're not that comfortable. They're not that comfortable speaking to me, switching to Western Armenian, but they know it. But they love Eastern Armenian. They love the humor, you know, and so on. So. So Western Armenian, it's a beautiful culture, and when I hear it in films or something like that, it's very moving. Yeah.
How is it in Toronto, Canada, in the Armenian community nowadays, about the passing on of the Western Armenian language? Do you know how the situation is?
Because there are schools, and they learn, you know. But I think English is such a dominating language, so a lot of kids, I mean, they know Armenian, and they probably speak Armenian with their parents, and they learn it in the school, but then with each other, they speak English. Yeah. That's the complaint with all the parents.
Are there further questions? Are you currently working on new films?
Gosh, I want to, yeah. And I should just say no, I'm not, but I want to, yeah. I can't say why. I have shot something, actually, a short piece that I want to edit. But at the same time, I have such a desire to make a straightforward narrative film with really good story. So if I could put time into that, that would be amazing. That would be really exciting. I'm teaching film and just seeing so many films and yeah, having to write a script, that's the thing now, yeah.
For the funding institutions. So
exactly, yeah.
But when you teach film, maybe this would like to, or would be interested to hear, when you teach in Armenia students film, what kind of idea of making films do you give them? What you want to pass on in terms of
I think like a personal voice, like your own way of seeing the world, just like, for example, of course, I show Pelachian's work, and I love his work. And I think what you're emotionally what is emotionally important to you at that point in your life, to make a film about that. But it's hard to teach those things. I don't know. I think it's just by showing by example, by people's work. And I think sometimes art, you don't even know what you're going to do until you make it, and then it comes out, you know. So I think that's what it is. I think, like for me, I didn't know I was going to make films like this, because I was really interested in the film that inspired me to get into film was Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal. So it's a completely different thing, you know. But this is what I ended up making, and I think. Yeah, just actually doing it and not feeling like you have to make films like anyone else, and finding your personal voice. I mean, you can't tell that to anybody. They just have to do it anyways. I mean, it's not something that can be taught, right? It's just by showing and seeing and doing.
So actually, tomorrow, Saturday from 11 on, Gariné Torossian will give a workshop. We titled it 35mm and video, and video workshop with the idea of combining these two materials to create a own film. So,
with of course sound being an important part of it. So.
So Gariné Torossian will be here tomorrow, and I want to also advertise a publication which Fred Kellerman, whom we had talked about, had done in 2007. He had organized a retrospective of Armenian cinema in Berlin at Arsenal titled Karot back then, and Gariné Torossian and Resnia Khanjan, among others, were also invited back then with Stone Time Touch, and there are 2 volumes. In one volume there are the film texts of the films screened, and the other one contains the transcriptions of the very lengthy and very astonishingly profound discussions which were done, among others with the 2 of you. So yeah, we have some copies available. Fred Kellerman gave some copies, so in case you're interested, we have them available here. In case you want to ask one question, otherwise we can of course continue the discussion outside, and or do you want to
Thank you so much. It's been such an amazing experience. Thank you for including my work in this program.
Oh, well, actually, I'm sorry. I do have one last question, because now I remember that there's one aspect, and you mentioned it yourself before, this aspect of feminist feeling of you being, I don't want, of course, to reduce you in any sense to that, but of course you are one of, one must say, one of the not so many, nowadays there are, one of them among us also, Louise Martine Papassion, but you're one of the not so many female filmmakers of Armenian origin one knows of, so you're surely among the most famous filmmakers of Armenian origin, but one of the very few female. How is it? Was this feminist or a female aspect for you, or how important was it for you in your filmmaking?
Well, I think that's like the most important thing, and then the other, that's the most important thing. It's hard to really say much, just because it's such a personal. Even if it's a feminist thing, it's not about. It's just about my experience. I can only express my own experience and my own feeling towards being a woman. And I don't know. It's hard to explain. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I mean, I do it with the sound. I think, like for example, there's a moment in the film where there's a scream. I don't know, the scream is symbolic. It's another film of mine, Drowning in Flames. And then there's a little girl with the arrow. I don't know, I do it that way, kind of. It's hard, it's very abstract. I can't talk about it, articulate it so well, but I do it in a kind of an abstract way. It's a kind of a repression, or kind of, being brought up. I mean, I was very young when I went to Canada, but still, coming from that culture, I guess, and the way my father and mother were probably brought up, where they were, they didn't have freedom. They had to play certain roles, maybe as man and woman, and that affects us as well, even though they never told us those things, but still those things pass on, And just the representation of women, and in the past, I think things have changed a lot, obviously. How women are seen, and it's very hard to explain. I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't really say exactly, but that's always been, for example, another film which you see, Drowning in Flames. It's inspired by a portrait of a young woman painted by Petros Christos, and it's the way she is framed, and that image inspired me to make that film. So, and then, I mean, the other thing with this film, Stone Time Touch, was about being an Armenian woman, I guess. I mean, and in a way, the search was about that. Coming to Armenia is finding that part of me as well, and what it means to be an Armenian woman. But now it's like, it's not really things that it's not really important now. I don't know. It's different now. Now it's like a different age. it's the same for men and women. I think you just go through different certain phases in your life. Now, women in her 50s, it's a different experience, and everything changes, hormones, body, and so on. So that's the thing that I'm interested in now, so exploring. So it's, I guess you could call it feminist in that way, because you're questioning it and making work about it. So rather than keeping it completely private, I don't know. And then, yeah, I don't know what to say. So I guess I'm tired. Or I'm not good at this. That's all.
Oh, it was a very insightful discussion. Thank you very much, and
Thank
we can
you so
continue
much.
outside. Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you, Gariné Torossian.
Thank you for being patient.